Welcome back, everyone. Sheepdog Smokey here, and you can hear that my voice is not 100%. I'm basically at about 95%. For those who saw the post on the text-only post on the About or whatever page of the channel, this is the time of year when allergies in my area are the worst, at least one of two times. When we fully come into summer, I suffer. When we fully leave summer, I suffer. Pretty much part and parcel of living in North Texas. Officially, we have what I've been told are 4 allergen zones. All of them unique, all of them kind of resistant or whatever to certain seasons, meaning I really never get a moment's peace unless we get a hard freeze, which we don't that often. But before I get going, pardon me, I want to say I'm actually going to be changing up what I'm doing. In the last several days when I've been unable to speak, other than basically sounding like this, which I don't even know if you heard that, I've been reduced to basically a whisper, which means, yeah, I do a lot of reading, I do a lot of listening, I do a lot of watching for the several days where I don't have a voice. Pardon me. And I've realized there's a lot of people out there that are much better at the journalistic side of things than I am. I have a degree in history with a focus on teaching secondary social studies. That basically being 6th grade through 8th grade social studies, government, history, economics, geographies, so on. Now, granted, that does give me a point of view that's very different from many people in journalism who focus on how to deliver a story, how to write a story. Mine is more of what's behind it. Mine is more of what is the sociology, the psychology, and all of that. So it is a different experience reading the news for me than for others, but there are a lot of people who are much better at breaking down news stories than I am. And while I'm not going to give up the Responding to News channel or playlist on this channel, I'm not going to be doing the 4s and 10s like I have been. I'm going to focus more on what I originally wanted to do here, which is, in essence, leading a social sciences class. Now, with my own personality, which is very much ADD, ADHD, I bounce around. I am the epitome of squirrel and, ooh, something shiny. So I break off on tangents, but when I read, when I study a specific topic, I focus in if it is a topic I enjoy, which would be history, sociology, psychology, geography, government, economics, and so on. So while I'm not going to be so much starting with 6th grade history and moving forward through graduating high school, that's going to be parts of it. Basically looking at where, history today seems to have changed in what is taught and how it is taught versus how I was taught in my elementary, middle, and high school days, how I was taught and what I was taught in college, which was only just 9 years ago that I graduated, and that was 6 years of college. But it is still social sciences, social psychology to me, in that it's not so much what we teach as how we teach it. I've said this to several people. It's not what you say, it's how you say it. I've seen many people on both sides of the political aisle that when they make a point, they make it badly. And inevitably, they are taken to task for it. I've seen several threads where basically my reaction is, oh, you screwed up. I'm not touching that with a 10-foot pole, although I do scroll through and read the comments. So the goal of the channel from here out will include some reaction to news stories. We're coming into a very contentious race for the presidency in 2020. We have the most people possible on the Democratic primary that I've ever seen in 42 years. Granted, I only remember about 37 of them, but still since 1982, I can't remember when there were more than maybe 4 or 5 people going for the primary. Parties used to consolidate, and now the Democratic Party has basically said anyone who wants to run is going to run. So there will be news I'm going to be reacting to. There will be stories. There will be all of it. But I'm going to move into something that is more in line with what I like to study, what I like to read about, what I like to dig deeper into. Some of it will be current pop culture. I just finished Good Omens, the Terry Pratchett book that Neil Gaiman adapted for Amazon Prime. So there's that. There's Lucifer. There's so many other things in pop culture that address issues of the social sciences. So some of it will be that. Some will be news, as you're seeing on the screen here, that I've now taken 6 minutes before I've even addressed. But I wanted to say this all first, because while I'm not joining the YouTuber community to get rich, I don't have any aspirations or delusions that I'll all of a sudden just one day wake up and be able to stop my job. I enjoy my job. I'm going to keep it. But this is something that I have an opinion on, and I'm going to spread it. I'm not one to be quiet. All of that said, please make sure that you subscribe and turn on notifications so that when we have stories like this, when we have videos on other topics, that you'll be the first to know of all new content. That said, I do, as you can see, record at home, and I do have a normal job. So I record ahead of when videos posts. So they do post at certain times, but that's no longer going to be every day at 4:10, 4:10. It's going to be scheduled for the next day, yes, but there may be one video, there may be multiple, who knows. But that said, I want to dig into this one because this, to me, is kind of the epitome of what we're seeing from Democratic candidates. It is basically, I'm going to step out on stage, I'm going to say something, and then if it doesn't go over, I have to apologize, and I have to find a way to make my statement not kill my hopes of being elected. We have Marianne Williamson apologizes for calling vaccine mandates draconian. She is apparently a Democratic presidential hopeful. Also, apparently, is going to be part of the debates, meaning that she has gotten enough donors, unlike others. But when we look at it here, she is a candidate that has made a comment describing mandatory vaccination as draconian and Orwellian. Knowing what those two terms mean, I can tell you they are the exact opposite. One, we have study after study after study that vaccines do not in any way cause autism. We are not yet to a society where doctors are so beholden to the government that they will kill people via injection. Okay? I understand being told you need these 4,000 shots before you're age 12. I'm going to ask, okay, what are they? Why do I need them? And I'm going to be skeptical, yes, but I'm going to listen to the person who spent years in medical school, and I'm going to tell them, I'm not a doctor. Please explain this to me in terms I can understand. That's a lot of stuff, man. And I'm going to ask him, give it to me in layman terms. Now, when a doctor says your child needs a measles vaccination, or your child needs a polio vaccination, or your child needs a, I don't know, chickenpox vaccination so they don't get shingles. I grew up around all of those things. I can remember friends of mine in elementary and middle school that when they finally returned after a long absence, telling me that they were not allowed to leave their house unless going to the doctor because they'd caught the measles or the mumps. I had my MMR shot when I was very young. I had a booster when I was in my teens. They hurt like crap. They bubble up, and they just stay under the skin, and they wait there. It's like a tetanus shot. But I'd rather have that than mumps, measles, rubella, whooping cough. It's just, it's logic to me. Now, when I hear a doctor say that a boy, a biological male, should receive a vaccination for cervical cancer, my brain says, wait, biological males don't have a cervix. How can something they don't have get cancer? I don't have children. I've never been told any of this by a doctor. If I was, I would ask my doctor, can you explain that? And then I'm going to listen. And I'm going to realize this person sitting in front of me telling me this spent years in medical school. Now, from what I have learned, HPV, human papillomavirus, is not so much it does not depend on if you have a cervix or not. So the HPV vaccine going to biological males is to help prevent transmission to females and so on and so forth. I don't understand the rest of it. I do understand from having read what I've read and talked to people I've talked to, yeah, you should get the HPV vaccine. Now, they come to me and say, you need to get the purple polka dotted spots vaccine because only people who live in a one square kilometer area of the Congo get this. I'm never going to go to the Congo. And I'm going to ask, why am I getting a vaccination for this when I can't get it? I'm still going to listen to my doctor. We're now seeing, unfortunately, outbreaks of the measles, outbreaks of typhus. We have Ebola back on the world scene. We have things happening now that are public health crises. And to have a candidate for president stand up and call mandatory vaccination draconian or Orwellian, one tells me she doesn't know what draconian means and she's never read Orwell. But it also tells me this is not someone who should have power in the government. If you have read Orwell, then you know that Orwellian is a brutal police state. 1984 has only once ever been, as far as I know, or only once successfully, turned into a motion picture. Famously, John Hurt, Mr. Ollivander, the war doctor from Doctor Who, was in it, and it is what you can imagine. You wake up, you go to work, you leave, you eat lunch, you come back, you work, you leave, you go home. That's all you do. Big Brother is everywhere. It's virtually having a drone follow you 24/7 to make sure you don't even think something that the government does not approve of. Another wonderful cinematic example of it would be Equilibrium. Pardon me. Which had Sean Bean and Christian Bale in it, where to enforce this society, you would take Prosium, which removed all emotion from the human body. It basically turns you into an automaton. Anyone who was feeling sense offenders, killed. That is draconian. That is Orwellian. Making sure you don't get measles, mumps, rubella, whooping cough, and so on, not Orwellian. That we have someone who can say this and then just very shortly after say, I misspoke. Tells me we have someone who should not be given political power. It is beyond me that more people don't see this. And one, I can only wait with bated breath for the Democratic circus that will be their debates, just to see how people who only 3 years ago brutally attacked the GOP debates as the most horrible things ever because you're just attacking your own party members and your friends and your allies and you're calling them names. They're going to do the same thing. We have one person in Washington, D.C. who is not a politician, and that is Donald Trump. The rest are politicians. They say what they have to say in the moment. They may apologize later, and under all of those apologies is, I'm sorry you didn't understand what I'm saying. I'm sorry you weren't smart enough to realize what I'm saying. And it's going to be a wild ride. I do want to thank everyone who has already subscribed to the channel, and if you haven't, please consider doing so, because the more interaction and involvement I see, the more I am driven to do this. I am, again, very sorry. I have seasonal allergies, and I live in North Texas, so several times a year, I turn into a mute. Or, like today, I wake up and I am basically forcing myself to revisit and view the last several meals I've eaten. It's about the best way I can put it without saying the actual word. I'm only just now, um, almost nighttime. I mean, we're talking hours upon hours of me just laying in bed hoping the Pepto-Bismol worked. But I'm now back on my feet, and I'm going to stay that way until my body decides not to let me stay that way. And then I will talk to my doctor and find out if I should go to the ER or if I should just take more Pepto. Luckily, I have a doctor who knows me very well. He's known me since I was a child, so yeah, I listen to him. That said, guys, this is going to be the last thing for a little while. Uh, I don't know how long. It's not going to be a long time, but like I said at the beginning, I want to move away from being a look at this news story and here's how I think about it guy. Coming into an election year, so 2020, 22, 24, 26, 28, 30, moving forward, election season generates a lot of things for me. I am a politics, history, and social sciences junkie. My bookshelf looks like something you'd expect a college professor to have on their bookshelf. It's just the way I'm wired. So, yeah, news stories are going to jump out at me, and I'm going to talk about them. But I want to start doing something that I don't see as much of. So hopefully you guys will enjoy it. You'll find it interesting, and you'll join the conversation on it. Just a little bit of a teaser. The next thing I'm looking at is roughly focused on about 500 to 700 years ago. I'm not going to say more because I don't want to ruin it, but it is something that is very much linked to the United States, to the North American continent, really to the Americas as a whole. And it's something that I loved when I was studying it in college. I've continued it since I left. So this is going to be the breakaway. This is going to be the breakaway from news. The playlist will remain. You may see it grow by one story here and there, or by 20 stories over a week. Who knows? If a news story just grabs me, I'll respond to it. But I want to move into something that is more of what I went to college to be. Because unfortunately, if you follow me on Twitter at SheepdogSmokey, you'll know that I'm not able to find work as a social sciences teacher, unfortunately, because I'm not also a coach. A subject that tells people how their government works, what has happened in the past and why we should avoid it, how the economy works. A subject area with just those three things is taught part-time. But unfortunately, that's the way it is. So I do what I do to pay the bills, and I'm going to try and do the other thing here. I hope you enjoy it. Make sure to let me know what you think. As always, keep it civil. We don't learn from argument, only debate. But make sure to like and share the video to expand that conversation. Again, also please make sure to consider subscribing and turning on notifications so that you'll be the first to know of all new content that posts, especially as we're now moving off schedule. Until next time, have a great day.